Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 147 of the Noclip podcast. We're back, man. We are not very. What's the word? God, I can't even speak. It's been so long since I've podcasted. I can't even figure out the words. We're not reliable. We're nowhere near as reliable as we've been for the past 2-3 years. I don't know. We've been doing this podcast on the reg for a little while now. But we've been bad. We've been bad boys. We've been off doing. We can't even tell you what we're working on. We're working on secret projects, exciting secret projects, sexy, exciting, secret, arousing projects that I can't wait to tell you about. Everyone's gonna think we're doing like a Leisure Suit Larry doc now or something. We're definitely not. So that just leaves every other game ever made that isn't Leisure Suit Larry. Who knows what we're working on? We're gonna tell you some of the things we're working on today, but not the thing that's kept us out of the studio for much of the past month. Frank Howley, you've been with me on my travels. How have you enjoyed my travels while being as vague as humanly possible?
It's awesome. It's been very great. I honestly don't ever like leave or take vacations or leave my room much. So I'm very. This might be one of the best months of my life. So I'm very happy.
Sick. All right. We just need to. There's another project which may be dragging us quite far away from this continent. So we'll have to see about that. Jeremy Jane's been holding it down at Noclip HQ for the past couple of weeks, working on super sexy secret projects, which we probably will talk about today, actually. How are you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a beautiful day. I've been watching Yasujiro Ozu movies, which for longtime heads of the podcast will know I made a joke about how that was my movie blind spot. So I'm filling the blind spot out, and holy shit, Yasujiro Ozu's movies are like probably the best movies I've seen in like 5 years at least. Give
us some names. What are we looking at? And how do you get them? Do you just download them from a website somewhere?
Yeah, you meet a guy on the corner. He has a jacket on. There's a website called TUBI that just runs ads over old movies and stuff. TUBI.
Sure.
It's short for tuberculosis. It's I would recommend. Tokyo Story is kind of the one everyone says to watch. It's very good. It's also it's touching, but it's very sad. If you're looking for one that is like a 1950s Japanese movie that has 400 fart jokes in it.
Wow.
Good Morning is very good. It's two little boys go on a strike to get their parents to buy them a TV in the 1950s in post-war Japan. It's really cute. And then the one I just started last night is Tokyo Twilight, which is the saddest one so far, but it's unbelievably good. So check out Ozu.
Man, I typed Tubi into Google, and it also gave me a bunch of movies that presumably just decided to skip being in cinemas and go straight to Tubi, straight to where the audience is.
Can we get a couple of those?
Yeah, we got Titanic 666 here, which is just an incredibly evocative name. You wonder immediately what's going on there. According to the synopsis here, 110 years after the sinking of the original, the Titanic 3 begins its maiden voyage to the original wreck site. However, strange things begin to occur after the ship's arrival and dark forces rise from the depths. When did that sub go down? Earlier, that was this year, wasn't it?
I think this year, yeah. This year ahead of the curve.
This movie came out in April of 2022, so it was ahead of the curve, folks. I don't know what happened to the Titanic 2 in the headcanon of this. Presumably, if there's a 3, that means the 2 isn't around anymore.
Yeah.
Or they're franchising them, and it's just like maybe there's 666 Titanics. Maybe that's
so this is a Tubi original. I guess I didn't get that from the description. That's amazing.
I wasn't sure if it was or not, but it
says distributed by Tubi on the little thing here.
Terrific. Love it. They also have Most Wanted Santa. An FBI agent and detective team up to find the criminal being behind a string of stolen artwork. The number one suspect is an unexpectedly handsome Santa Claus. That just sounds like Bad Santa told from the opposite perspective.
Yeah.
An absolute classic Bad Santa. Let's see if there's any more classic Tubi
there
originals.
is a Titanic too. There is a Titanic too. A cruise liner set sail on the 100th anniversary of the Titanic's doomed maiden voyage when a tsunami hurls an iceberg. A tsunami hurls an iceberg.
Wait.
Into the ship's
What?
The crew and the Can you imagine if you were on a ship that like was 100 years after a ship had gone down from an iceberg and the way is clear and you're going? And it's
you're like okay, look. This is the Titanic too. if there's one thing we have to make sure, it's that we don't
No
hit an
icebergs.
iceberg. So they're like, they're already, and the writer of this movie is like, damn it, icebergs are off the table. But wait,
What about a tsunami iceberg combination?
that throws the iceberg, presumably, or I don't think tsunami waves on the open ocean are less of a concern, right? Because of the depth of the water and the volume of the water. The issue with tsunamis is that it's a wave. When it hits land, there's no more. The water can't be like it can't go anywhere because it's coming, and the wave rises because the sea floor rises to land. So if you're just in the open ocean and a tsunami happens, it doesn't have the power to throw an iceberg.
I feel like you've dissected exactly what happened with this screenplay, which is that he was like, oh, it's a tsunami. And then he brought it to the studio and they were like, a tsunami would not be a huge deal if like a giant boat encountered it at sea. And he was like, well, I didn't tell you about the iceberg. And they're like, oh, okay, go on.
That is fascinating. So Titanic 666 is the sequel to Titanic 2. They also apparently named it Titanic Rises, and also Titanic 3, they said. But I guess Titanic 666 is more evocative. Although Titanic 3 has a sort of a comedy name value to it that I really like.
They just keep trying. That could be the Titanic 3. They just keep trying.
It is apparently the film received generally unfavorable reviews, and users on the social media noted the film's similarity to Titanic 1997 and Studio 666, which I still haven't seen yet. Have any of you seen that? That is the Foo Fighters horror movie. Do you remember it came out like last year? It stars Dave Grohl and everyone else. I think in the untimely passing of Taylor Hawkins, it might be something that is less talked about because I think there are scenes where the entire band are slain in pulpy sort of Halloween-esque ways. But you guys haven't seen this?
I've never even heard of this.
Yeah, it's based on a story by Dave Grohl.
That's crazy. It looks like the poster of it is because it is like Dave Grohl's big head at the top above a haunted house. It just looks so fake. Like it looks like a fake movie that would be promoted for like a theme park ride or something.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Do you know what it looks like? It looks like when you go to like the county fair and and they have those like airbrushed pictures of celebrities.
Exactly.
You know? It looks like that shit. Man, that's cool. Somebody should do a documentary on like whoever it is who gets paid to do that job, you know? Be like the like spray can artist who has to draw like Justin Bieber on the side of this fucking roller coaster.
I was always a big fan of there was a place near where I grew up that was like an oceanside pier where they would have people that would airbrush t-shirts and stuff.
Oh,
and I feel like the classic airbrushed t-shirt was like gangster Bugs. It was like Bugs and Taz, but they were wearing like 90s like a Kangol hat and like some very loose jeans and just looking
do-rag.
tough. Yeah, exactly.
Like Crip Taz.
yeah, exactly. I regret not getting more of those as a child.
You could probably buy them on that. What was that website where they sell t-shirts for $5,000 that you told us?
Grailed?
Grailed probably has fucking their Grail floweth over with Taz dressed up as a blood.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're 100%. I just typed in Thug Taz and we got gold.
Thug Taz. We also have a way more in our wheelhouse. We have an original movie called First Person Shooter, which came out in 2022, which I now think we should probably do some sort of Patreon exclusive podcast on. It is another TUBI original. The creative head of a video game development company is close to releasing his newest game when a mysterious coder begins to hack his life.
Oh, dude. We have to watch this.
That's like Black Mirror.
It is. It's hacking his life. The lines between reality and the digital world are just, they're disappearing.
That should be our Halloween episode. Is at least in part, we should watch that.
You're right. I typed in first person shooter into Google, and of course it just gave me a picture of surface tension from Half-Life 1. I'm like, yeah, if you're gonna like talk about one first person shooter level, let's go with surface tension. It's literally a shot of the dam level with the helicopter. So perfect. I'm like, yeah, that might be the best That might be the best moment in first-person shooters. We topped in 1998, and we never got any better. There you go. Check out TUBI Originals. So you're not watching any of those. You're watching actual.
No, in fact I think that'd be a jarring pairing, is to watch like one of the finest pieces of like extremely subtle Japanese family drama from the 40s, and then crank it up to Titanic 666.
Yeah, cultural whiplash there. You can really enjoy. But you know, some directors are just too scared to have a tsunami throw an iceberg. You know who's not scared? Our incredible Battle Pass holders today. Battle Royale games. Arno, Richard Matheson, James Brown, Jason Drury, Mark Rojas, Ryan Cobb, Tucker Morgan, Crimson Cyclist, Sven Huster, Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Andy Fegan, Darren Birmingham, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Cameron Ladd, Alex Sharp, Alex Goucher, George Takotis, Jacob Godserve, James Andrew Adams, or Ja, as I call him, Tohir Tilyaev, and of course, Ryson. Thank you all so much for your incredible support. Thank you to everyone who's been supporting us while we've been gallivanting. Here's the deal, folks. Here's the deal. We can't talk about what we're working on right now. It's not actually a Noclip thing either. It's part of the sort of secret tape thing we've been secretly talking about on the side. This whole sister company that does other types of work, white label work that'll appear in places on the internet. There's two projects being worked on at the moment. One is an op-ed show from myself, which will be on a totally different YouTube channel to anything Noclip. We're getting paid to make it by somebody else. And for all you people who are saying this will be the 12,000th time that I've tried to spin up an op-ed show and that only one episode will come out, we have got a 6-episode series signed, sealed, and delivered. So no matter what, you will be getting monthly episodes of this show. I can probably tell the name by now. It's called By Design. It's going to be all about like game design, game development, the business of games, sort of analyzing what's going on and trying to like piece, I don't know, from our general experience running Noclip for 7 years and visiting all these development studios and knowing a lot of things, some things that are, you know, we know because we're in the right room at the right time, sometimes because we're, you know, following games and just have had the exposure to it and conversations that we don't often get to talk about. And each episode's going to focus on a different game or an aspect of the industry and basically try and like just do the research and then piece the whole thing out. And the first one is all about kind of why Baldur's Gate 3 ended up being such a surprising success. Just going into, I've talked to people at Larian, I've talked to streamers who are super into the CRPG world. We're looking at the history of CRPGs. We're looking at the design of Baldur's Gate, the makeup of the studio, where they get their funding, all that sort of stuff. And the first episode of that will be out at the end of the month in on a YouTube channel you'll hear about pretty soon. We're going to do a trailer in the next week or so, which you'll be privy to seeing. So that'll be super exciting. I'm in the edit on that at the moment. And then the other thing, we're working on the big project that we've been away with that Frank has been traveling with, and we've had some other folks helping us with, and we're all sort of throwing into at the moment, is a big project that is nothing to do with Noclip. We're doing it for a company, but you will all watch it and you will all lose your minds. It's like a pretty amazing project that we are incredibly psyched to do, and is the type of thing that we just couldn't do on Noclip because we wouldn't have gotten the access, we wouldn't have had the budget you needed to do it, we wouldn't have had the buy-in from all the people required given what we're talking about. Like it's kind of a use case for like the type of stuff that on Noclip we sort of reached our we haven't reached our limit. It's that there are some projects we want to do that we know we just can't do under the auspices of Noclip. We either don't have we just either can't spend as much money as a company would on their own, and we typically can't get that level of access. Or if that type of thing is going to get made to that level of production, you need to sort of people will, want to have some say in it, or we need their help to basically make it happen. Whereas Noclip is very much we turn up, we ask whatever questions we want, we make whatever we want, we put it on the internet. And sometimes you need a lot more collaboration to get like super big or difficult or complex sort of stories done. This is 100% one of those that people will go, oh yeah, this is this is a good use case for this whole white label thing when they see it. So I'm excited. In the next month, you're basically going to see all that shit. It's going to be super cool and super interesting. And then we can talk about it. We'll probably do, I don't know, I'm thinking we might do a little I think me and Frank might do a little kind of postscript on some of this, maybe as a Patreon exclusive, kind of have a video of, okay, that was crazy. This is how it went down. This is how it all went. This is how it all worked. Something like that. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We're going to talk about another project in a second that Jeremy's been working on diligently for most of this month. But before we do, games we've played, perhaps unsurprising. I don't think, and none of us got like Spider-Man 2 code, so I can't talk to that, or none of us can talk to that. And obviously me and Frank were away for much of this month. Jeremy, you have presumably you've played a bit of this game. I played only a little bit of this game, but I've really enjoyed it so far. And you mentioned it a number of weeks ago. Mosa Lina. Yeah. How much of this game have you played?
So this was a demo a few weeks ago. The game just came out yesterday, or yesterday as of time recording, came out this week. It is I played probably like 3 or 4 hours just of the demo. I liked it that much. Like it reminded me of when I was a kid and I would get I had a demo disc from Eidos and it had like the one level of Commandos on it and one level of like Revenant and stuff. And I would just play those one levels over and over and over.
Right.
And over.
The Tony Hawk one in Marseille, I always remember. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 had the Marseille level. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was rinsing the hell out of this this demo. So Mosa Lina is the dev describes it as a hostile take on the immersive sim. It's kind of like an immersive sim meets a platformer meets Baba Is You.
Yeah, I can see that with the aesthetic as well of it.
Yeah, and also just like the rule switching. So the basic setup of Mosa Lina is it's super rapid fire. It's almost like WarioWare, but it's these little platformer, like single screen platformer levels.
2D, yeah.
A 2D platformer. Very simple art style, like very nice looking. These kind of like bizarre abstract scrolling backgrounds. It's just got this very like evocative, simple aesthetic.
The music is also like sort of unnerving in a way.
Yeah, yeah. It's got a really good vibe to the whole thing. But what you're doing is essentially you spawn in a level. And there are, a couple of fruits floating in the air. Like there will be like 2 fruits floating in the air and a couple of like obstacles, platforms, dangerous things that'll kill you and stuff. And all you have to do is there's a portal on the map. You have to touch all the fruits and then you have to get to the portal. And that's the whole level. Now, the trick is that you can't typically reach these fruits without the use of a number of like projectiles, I guess you would call them. So every time you spawn with 3 random utility projectiles, I don't know, they're not like weapons, but they're
almost the ammunition for your gun.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the way I've sort of internalized it, because your character has holding a little gun. You can like swap between the ammo. It feels like,
and your head changes to the type of ammo you're using.
Oh,
so
you're right.
If you're using bombs, your head turns into a little bomb. You're using mushrooms, head turns into a little mushroom. So the types of projectiles you use, every single one of them has kind of a different use case. Like bombs, for example, you shoot and they kind of float in the air for a minute, and then the fuse burns down, they explode. They can clear obstacles out of the way, but you can also use them to boost yourself. So you can shoot one and then jump over it and boost yourself with it. Mushrooms you can jump on top of, but you can also shoot them at something and bounce stuff away. I'm trying to think. So there's like dead fish is one of the new ones in the full game.
There's a live fish for sure. There's
a live fish. But the reason I said dead fish is because the way I've used it almost exclusively is when there's a big spike pit, you can shoot the fish into it and they die, and then you can jump on their backs.
Oh, that's clever. That's clever. Otherwise, they're just kind of flopping around, causing havoc.
Yeah, I guess that's why I went straight to dead fishes, because I've not found a use for them when they're alive. But that's kind of the genius of the design of this game, is that every single tool in this game seems like it has an apparent use for it. And then, like, for example, there's another one that's frogs, and you shoot these frogs and they spawn and then they wait a second and then they jump, and wherever they land, they turn around, wait, and jump back.
Oh, cool.
So it seems like the apparent use for that is, I must have to stand on this and it boosts me into a jump, which you can do. But they also, the frogs can also collect the fruits for you if they jump into the fruits.
Cool.
You can also shoot them into a spike pit and they die, and you can use them as like a platform. So every single one of these, like,
you're just firing all the animals into the spike pit, you maniac.
It's a good strategy, man. Listen, I've played enough of this game to get ruthless. But all of these different projectiles have a number of different applications to them. And so this game that seems like it would be incredibly minimalist and kind of like you would play it and know what all the projectiles do in kind of like a couple hours and be done with it. The meta strategy kind of continues to develop over time. So even after playing, like if you include the demo, I've probably played 6 or 7 hours of this game so far.
Wow.
You still discover new things. Like here's one. I'll leave most of it for people to discover, but one pro tip for people is sometimes the fruits are hanging in the abyss and you have to like jump out to get them, and it's hard to figure out how.
Yeah.
You can, if you spam jump as soon as you hit the fruit, you can land on a fruit, and before it falls, you can jump off of it.
Oh, that's cool. That's good to know, actually.
Yeah. So
because that's not really a puzzle solution either. It's just like a usability thing. Yeah.
Right.
Could you explain to me how the levels work? So I've played only like, I don't know, 30 minutes of this, and I was immediately like, oh, this is fantastic. It doesn't work on Steam Deck yet, I don't think. I tried to get it to run and it wouldn't play ball, but when you load it up, you can either play with a controller or keyboard. But one of the things I couldn't, so I guess when you go into each level, the levels they're not randomly designed, but they're sort of randomly rolled, like given to you. Like if you don't complete a level, it just loads a new level, and it also loads like randomizes the ammunition or the tools you get, right? You get 3 and it sort of like randomizes them. Is that right?
Yeah, so there are so at the beginning of kind of like a run, I guess you would call it. It gives you 9 levels.
Okay.
In the bottom corner in the final version, it says like track 26 or something. So I imagine that there is a curated combination of levels that go together. I'm not really sure actually. The levels are definitely
sets almost. Like here's the first 9 here, and then when you complete those, you get to the next 9. Is that what?
So
it
yeah,
works?
it goes to a different track.
Okay.
The levels themselves are not procedurally generated, which I've seen a lot of people think they are, just because of the kind of random nature of the game. The levels themselves are curated. What's random is at the beginning of a run, you'll see a board of all of the projectiles in the game, and it'll play like a bunch of like beep boop boop beep boop boop boop, and pick which ones you're gonna use for that run. And then within those ones that were picked, each time you play a level, it will pick 3 of those for you to use.
Right.
So that's the randomness.
So you can get stuck.
Yes.
If you just get the wrong tools for the right level kind of thing.
So there's like a bunch of tooltips that appear in kind of like the between runs level that you go to in the void. And one of the things it says is like, not every level is beatable. Like, don't be afraid to restart or re-roll the run or whatever if you get the wrong projectiles. So this game it's really encouraging, like, there were times where I got stuck on a level and it was like a little frustrating, but because you can always just mash R and it just insta kills you and takes you to the next level. It rewards experimentation and just it's very like playful. Like it's not one of those. It's not like Super Meat Boy where you're bashing your head against the wall over one level or whatever. You know what I mean?
I also felt that the every time you get a new weapon, you just you have to just kind of blind fire it to see what it even does.
Yeah,
you're like, what's bamboo? And I shot bamboo, and it just makes a huge bamboo stick. Which
that one's my favorite. That one is so good because you can like you can extend the bamboo and it sort of like floats a little bit, and you can run on it and it'll like carry you through the air and
all right.
You could so this is what I'm talking about with like developing more meta strategies as you go on. Initially, I thought the bamboo was kind of just you shoot it up and it makes kind of like a platform for you to run up to get to high platforms.
Like kind of a bridge at an angle or something. Or I used it to get over a baddie one stage. I like put it over the spikes of the baddie and kind of ran up that way.
Yeah, exactly. But what I've also discovered is that the bamboo, because it sort of floats, is very malleable with the physics of the game. And so this is like my favorite thing about this game is there's been so many times where I messed up one jump or shot one projectile over the edge or just like fucked something up. And I was like, I can't beat this level now, but I'm not going to give up yet. I'm just going to like see it through. And then something unexpected will happen where I'll like shoot the bamboo and then one of the projectiles will roll it and it'll like pinch it at a weird angle and it'll pop out. And then I'll realize that I can like jump up on it and spam jump and it'll kind of like ease it over towards the goal line and get me over there. And so I like those moments. I mean, that's why I think they call it a hostile take on the immersive sim is it gives you all of these systems and all of these tools and it lets you kind of figure out how to use them in interesting ways and in ways that are I imagine even if you were the dev of this game would surprise you, like some of the things that because it's all physics driven and because it's all kind of sandboxy, I think you can kind of just like get out of unbeatable scenarios through sheer luck and experimentation sometimes.
Yeah, that's cool to hear because every time I've I don't know, it's just been fun. Every time I've gone into the level, it's not been like, oh, I'm back at this level I can't complete. It's always like, oh, okay, I got like different stuff here. Like one of the things is just like anti-grav, and it just like creates like a rectangle that like if you walk into it, gravity is reversed, and like that's really powerful. You can use that in like loads of ways, like to like make you jump, or to make the things that you've spawned jump, or to make the enemies get anti-graved in a way. And it's kind of, I feel like we've talked about this in some way where we talked about like, you know, 3D immersive sims like Arcane's ones and stuff, or I guess Weird West was an example I used before of like once you strip down the graphical load of some of these games, like you sort of open up more and more possibilities. And this is like almost the most refined version of that, where it's 2D, it's just physics shit. All you have to do is get these things in the levels. There are scenarios where the levels are unbeatable. Like the fact that that's part of the design of the game is actually really smart because it lets them be more playful. And the levels are so short. Like you can complete these levels in like 10 seconds, or you can complete, you know, you could spend a minute or two trying to work them out or whatever. But because you can just like, whatever, next one, like it's a really fantastic like playground for that type of shit. Like they don't let the game get out of in the way. They're like, whatever, you can just, can't beat it now. Don't worry about it, dude. You know, I love that. That's like, because you can't do that in a game like Dishonored or a game like Weird West. You need to make sure that all of the like gameplay plot holes that you may have created have to be filled in. And like obviously in this, they're just like meh. You know,
like you'll figure it out, and if you don't, no big deal. And the way each track goes is there's 9 levels in a single track, and what happens is basically that if you die on one, the game shuffles you to another one of the 9. But once you beat a level, it's taken off the table. So what kind of happens is it starts, each run, and like the runs themselves are, I mean, once you get good at this game, they don't last particularly long. But what happens for me as someone who's played like 7 hours now is that I'll burn through like 4 or 5 of them. And then there'll be like 3 or 4 problem ones. Right. And so as the run starts very kind of like free flowing, and I'm like, oh, I'll just like experiment and do whatever. And then as it's kind of like ratchets down towards the end of it. And then it's like, okay, I have those 2 bastard levels left that have been like haunting me this whole time.
But at least it's jumping between the 2. Like it's such a clever design. It's not like you're just banging your head against that one level over and over and over again. It's like that's super clever.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's really brilliant. It kind of reminds me of Noida a little bit. I don't know if you guys played Noida at all.
Yeah, very physics based again, you know. Spells and shit.
Very different type of game, but I just like, I don't know, there's something about it where Noida I really enjoyed, but because Noida is so punishing and so kind of like systems driven and RNG driven, that when you get deep into a run and then just like a stray projectile shoots through the screen and ends your run, it's so maddening. I really like how snackable Mosa Lina is. Like I don't know. Like last night, I just kept. I would close it and be like, all right, cool. I played a ton, and I have a lot to talk about tomorrow. And then I was like chilling watching a movie, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna go like do another run. Like it's just so like, I don't know. It's like a little video game snack.
Moorish. We should also mention this game is $4.99. This is not a very expensive game. You mentioned it. You mentioned the developer as well. A number of weeks ago, once that demo was out. So we talked about it a little bit there too, but yeah, it's pretty great, and there's a lot of scuttlebutt around it. Like a lot of like people in the industry are starting to like talk about it as like this is like one of the most interesting games that's come out this year, and like it's from a gameplay perspective, like I can totally see how designers would really be into this because it plays fast and loose with a lot of like game design problems in a very smart way. It's very well put together. Everyone should go check out the Steam page if it tickles your fancy. If you're like, give it a go, then you'll probably enjoy it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that as someone who tinkers with game design, it like makes me jealous because it's so brilliant, and I think that's a good sign where it's like, oh, this is. If I had this idea, like I would have been so happy with myself. Because it's so minimalist and so kind of simple. But within those simple parameters, like I feel like a good sort of minimalist game idea is one that you can pitch to someone very simply in a sentence. It's a physics-driven platformer with a bunch of different physics tools and some degree of randomness. But within that, it's like it's just they like designed the shit out of this game. Like it's just like I don't know, man. Every single one of the tools is interesting and fun to use. They all feel very different. It's surprising. It's fun. It feels like a perfect mix of kind of like randomness and curation, where like there's enough design going on that within those parameters, the randomness is fun and not overly punishing. So yeah, I don't know. This game just it's awesome. I've really really been enjoying it.
Yeah, not much creative fat left on the bone. It's pretty tight. Mosa Lina, so obviously a Mona Lisa sort of flip around there, if in case you're forgetting what the game is after the podcast is over. Mosa Lina, go check it out. Over on Steam. I don't know if it's coming to anything else. It's an indie dev, so who knows? But definitely worth playing with your keyboard or your controller over on PC. A game I've been playing with my keyboard and my mouse, and definitely not my controller, because that would be insane, is Counter-Strike 2. We talked a little bit about Counter-Strike 2 a couple of weeks back. I'm enjoying Counter-Strike 2 still. I'm diving in. The skill floor has risen a little bit. We're starting to see that, second and third week, everyone's getting a bit better. Some of the chumps have decided to go back to Valorant or whatever. I don't know. They've all disappeared. But I mostly want to talk about all the Half-Life gacha stuff I've been buying on Steam Marketplace. So they got. I did not play CS:GO. I did not really. Well, I played CS:GO, but I did not get into CS:GO like I got into 1.6 and Source and well, I say 1.6. 0.8. I don't know when I first started playing Counter-Strike, back before it was 1.0 for sure. But CS2, the marketplace they have is basically based on Counter-Strike, much like the Steam app is. I'm actually starting to wonder if that's why they did that. It would be great if, I don't think they've answered that question, but because like the whole marketplace of Counter-Strike 2 is basically the Counter-Strike Go marketplace, and all that stuff integrates, and you can go back and buy like fucking promotions they did for some tournament 5 years ago. It has to have something to do with the app ID. Like, I wonder if either they made another app and it was going to take them like forever to make sure that all of this like Steam Marketplace shit matched up, or I don't know. That in my head, that's the reason, where it's like, oh, they probably just wanted to like skip a shitload of boring work, so they just replaced the game. They use the same app ID, but they changed the branch. You know what I mean? Which makes sense in my head. It's like, oh, having done some of the Steam app stuff in the background. But anyway, in any case, there has been a bunch of Half-Life shit. So there's like stickers you can get. There's like patches that you can stick on your stuff. No one ever sees this shit. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. But I played a bunch of this game and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stick like $20 into this. I'm gonna waste some money on some stupid shit, and I'll be able to justify it by talking about it on the podcast. It's very weird because like you can't just buy the thing you want. Maybe you can on like the free marketplace. Maybe they've opened them. I'm not sure if you even can, but you just buy like little fucking packets, and then it rolls the dice and tells you what you got. So stickers, the patches. I forget what else. There's some other bits and bobs, and they have a couple of them. They have like the Half-Life Alex one. They have like the Lambda, the Black Mesa patch. They have like a Combine helmet. I'm looking through the marketplace here. I have a lot of these. I think I bought like 5 packs or something. I like spent all the money. One of them was like $5 for like one of the patches or something, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, really? And I think the other ones were like $2.99. Have you done any of this stuff, Frank, in the past on Counter-Strike? I know you have in other games, but
yeah, not Counter-Strike. Like, I think the first week I played CS2, I looked and there was all these cute anime girl stickers. I was like, oh, that looks good. But I don't think I've jumped back into Counter-Strike 2 yet. But yeah, I don't know. I think that for the right game or the right like stupid enough crossover, I'm definitely interested.
Yeah, I was like, what is the one thing they could do that would make me spend money? And I was like, well, it's probably Half-Life shit. So I like searched for Half-Life stuff, and then that's what it ended up dragging me in. So I did it, and now my stuff is vaguely more Half-Life 2-y. I think there's a Half-Life 2 music kit as well. We talked about the music stuff. I had I had Hades soundtrack as my menu music for Counter-Strike 2 for like 5 minutes and then was just weirded out by it and stopped. I have met somebody, I have played people who have won the map and then the Halo music is played, like you were talking about.
Nice.
So I've seen that happen. So that's the cool thing, I guess, is that it works for everyone else. But I do miss just being able to import whatever shit you wanted, like back in the day. But you know, those days are long behind us. Frank, a game presumably you can't buy DLC for to upgrade the looks of people is Resident Evil 4. But you've been playing it regardless. How are you enjoying it? This is presumably the remake.
Yeah, so Resident Evil 4 Remake, I think came out in like March or April, and I played it, but at the time, I think I was just like kind of overwhelmed and stressed, and I just did not want to play a survival horror game. It was too like, oh God, I was too stressed. It's October, perfect time to play all these horror games.
Yeah.
Also, the Separate Ways DLC with Ada Wong just came out, so Resident Evil 4 is back in the zeitgeist. Also, like, end of the year, I kind of want to like make sure I beat some of the year's best games. So I basically played like the last 10 hours of Resident Evil 4 this month. I think when I played the RE4, when I started it back in March, I did the entire village chapter or like saga, like up until you get to the castle. And in my head, I'm like, all right, I get it. I'm cool. And then
I don't think I've ever played past the castle. I don't think I ever got to the castle. I think anytime when I was playing on GameCube back in the day, I think I did all that shit. And it was just like, fuck it, I'm out. Like it's
the best part of the game. Is
it really?
The beginning, the part you played, in my opinion.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the villages, yeah. Well, because when you get to the castle, then that's when there's like dogs and bugs, and it just gets worse. It just gets harder.
It's like the hunters in Resi 1, is it?
Yeah,
they just
yeah. And it's like, oh, this isn't fun anymore. This sucks. Like bugs are invisible. They fly. They pick you up. It's so much that goes on.
Oh wow.
And like I found this game pretty hard because I feel like Resident Evil 4. I don't remember what it was like the first time I played it, but every time I've replayed Resident Evil 4, it's like, oh, this is like kind of easy. I know what to do. It's very fast. Whereas RE4 Remake, the whole purpose with these Capcom remakes is they're subverting expectations. They will change things. They will surprise you. They will scare you. So the whole time I was playing RE4 Remake this year, I was like, God damn, this is hard. But I finally beat it, and I will say like the last island section of the game, like Resident Evil 4 has like 3 parts. There's the village, the castle, and then like the second part where you're basically fighting your way towards the island, the cove, and all that stuff. Krauser knife fights. That part seems a lot more streamlined. It didn't feel as tedious. It was still tough, but I felt there was like maybe 4 or 5 major battles, and then that was it, as opposed to like, I don't know, it felt smoother. So I beat the game, but now that I beat the game, like the coolest thing with RE4 is doing the New Game Plus.
Right.
Because it felt like the whole time I played Resident Evil 4, it was like I was hiking up a mountain, and now I'm like, well, I want to enjoy the view. I want to like now enjoy like the walk down it. So I started a New Game Plus, and I unlocked like Leon in his like pinstripe fedora outfit, so he looks like a dork, like just like he looks like a kid getting ready for like junior prom. Like it's very, very cute. You can dress up Ashley. So now I'm dressing up all the characters, putting on cute sunglasses, and blasting through it. My guns are maxed out, and so that's fun. And then there is going to be the Ada Wong Separate Ways DLC, which I haven't touched yet, but I do want to get into. But
what is that? A totally different chapter? Is it?
Yeah. So it was included, I think, in the PS2 version of Resident Evil 4 back in like 2006 or whatever, and that was also the Wii version, and then like the soft like port remaster PS3 360 era, and that is basically Ada Wong's perspective. I think it's like 4 hours. I don't even remember it when I played it like 15 years ago. Right. So I'm excited to see what that is. Also, Ada Wong's great, so I'm excited to see how that is. And then the way RE4 Remake ends is they do some cute like RE4 Resident Evil universe. They introduce a character, a character, and I'm like, oh shit, okay. So I want to see how they connect it and continue to push this Resident Evil 4
They're not
story.
going to do 5, are they?
I don't know. The way Resident Evil 4 Remake ends,
oh man!
I hope.
I mean, if any of the game, it's an argument to be made that if any of the games could do with a remaking, I mean, also 6 and also 6, which was just such a clusterfuck. But like 5 is like Resident Evil-ish in a way that 6 isn't, and kind of even 7 and Village aren't as well, I guess. But but I would like to see a survival horror version of 5, maybe, now that I think about it. Yeah.
They should turn 5 into tank controls and fixed camera. They should go back.
But keep it the same.
But keep it the same game. Like it's still the same setting and the same schlock and stuff, but just like Silent Hill ass, crane shots from up here and stuff.
Yeah, I was trying to think if there's. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I love every single Resident Evil that does come out except 6, but I'm all for it. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm excited. It's gonna be fun to play through it again. But yeah, like because Spider-Man 2 comes out in a few days, but like
Yeah, people
man,
are raging about it.
I kind of still just want to play more Resident Evil 4 before I get more. But I feel like Spider-Man isn't going to be a hard game.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Resident Evil 4 was very good. I'm excited to keep on playing it.
Sick. Yeah, Spider-Man 2 stuff's been interesting. A lot of praise for it. Obviously, the embargo dropped on Tuesday or something. By the time this podcast is out, the game will be out. So I'll be giving it I'll go there. Looking forward to playing that because Assassin's Creed hasn't put its hooks into me. I'm playing it. My wife's enjoying it a lot. She's played a bunch of it. She definitely says it's way more like stripped down. There's way less, just 1,000,001 different side quests to do. It's way more stealthy. In the other games, she would often like sort of like brute force her way through a lot of the fighting and stuff. And she says like the fighting's just not like either by design or just probably by design. The fighting isn't particularly like fun when you get in a huge fracas. It's basically like you need to run away. Like it's kind of the vibe of it. You can't just like, it's not the whole, 15 people surrounding you and one by one they come up shit. It's like it's a bit more kind of like the original the original Assassin's Creed games. So that's kind of forced her to play the game the way it wants to be played, I guess, which is stealth. And she says it's actually a lot of fun. So yeah, and she enjoys the setting and it seems to run really well and all that shit. So she hasn't had any eyeballless floating eyeball faces or anything like that happen. So that makes it bad, I guess. Actually,
I forgot to mention this when we did the New Vegas podcast, but within maybe 5-10 minutes of booting up the game, I was like, wow, this I haven't seen any bugs at all. I don't know why people say this is the buggiest game ever. And then the woman who does the tutorial in Good Springs, her dog was along with us, and I looked down at the dog and it had no eyes. And then I was so freaked out that I started examining it, and I realized its eyes had loaded in at like an orthogonal angle to the head.
Okay.
And so its eyes were just black sockets, and it had 2 floating eyeballs just to the right of its head following. It was perfect.
Beautiful. That's just radiation, man. That's what happens. Moving away from action madness to sports madness. So we're working on a documentary. It's our first classic one in a little while. I don't think the Burger King game counts as a classic doc per se. I mean, it is like 16 years ago, so there's an argument to be made, but maybe it doesn't have the vibe of an aesthetic game. This absolutely does. We're working on a documentary, our first ever sports game documentary, unless you're thinking about our first ever doc, which was Rocket League, which you could make an argument for. But our first ever sports doc, it is 30 years since the release of this game. And we have already interviewed a bunch of people who worked on the original game, a bunch of people who've worked on the modern versions of them as well. And Jeremy, you're deep in the edit. Tell us about your delightful editing time with our documentary on NHL 94.
Yeah, so I admittedly, I did not own a Genesis growing up, and I did own a Super Nintendo, but I did not own the Super Nintendo version of NHL 94. I've never played this game until like the last couple of weeks.
Awesome.
I don't like sports either, but that's kind of the perfect angle to approach this from is kind of an outsider because Mark Lesser, who's the programmer on this, there's a bizarre, interesting story. This doc is going to be way longer than I thought it's going to be because it has like to get to NHL 94, you have to talk about the entire history of EA Sports from its inception.
Right.
You have to talk about the creation.
Madden.
Yeah, you have to talk about the creation of Madden as like a franchise. Which is also kind of the creation of like the modern football game. Like I played a bunch of the old Madden games. It's bizarre how they play almost identical to like, to whatever 2K22 games are coming out now. Like the formula was there in the 90s. And then you also have to talk about the inception of the NHL games. And not only
all the craziness that happened there between NHL, EA Hockey, the NHLPA game that came out in 93, 94, and arguably you have to keep talking up to 95 because when the fights go back in, like it's a whole,
exactly. Yeah. So one of my favorite anecdotes, and like it's gonna sound like I'm spoiling a lot of the good bits from this doc. There are so many good bits in this doc that like it's an embarrassment of riches. It's actually been a problem editing it because there's just too much much to put in it. Like there's got to be some like Patron exclusive scenes or something.
Yeah, the Mark Lesser interview, he was the first one I did, and I was like, well, this is going to be fucking great, because he remembered everything, and I was asking him incredibly, because NHL 94 is not that complex to get, you know, in comparison to modern games, it's very like two teams, there's a puck, there's all this stuff. So to get any meat out of the interview, and I've played the shit out of NHL 94, it's largely considered one of the best sports games ever made. So I had to go like super specific on the questions, but I was expecting him to just be like, I don't know, or whatever. But no, he had like amazing answers for everything. I was like, this is a dream.
Yeah, he has like an encyclopedic mind. He also has the most programmer brain ever, where he touches on every topic in amazing detail, but he jumps seamlessly between them in a way that like makes sense to his genius brain. But I'm like, in the edit, I'm like, oh god, yeah, I'm like, oh, the answer to that question is like 25 minutes later, because he needed to like talk about the Maine magic, like working in a barn in Maine was part of the magic of this game.
Right.
But a couple of my favorite bits from it are Michael Brook, the producer on that game, talks about bringing the original the original NHL hockey game to the 90 or 91 NHL playoffs, and like the commissioners there, like all the NHL bigwigs are there, and all the reporters are playing the game because it's like the first reveal to the press. And they figured out how to get fights to trigger. And so sitting there watching Wayne Gretzky get the shit beaten out of him is like the commissioner of the NHL. And there's like this whole amazing story about how the NHL wasn't properly briefed on like what the game would entail. And there's like a lawsuit that emerges out of it, but it's just such a bizarre story.
And how they ended up going, that's why it was NHLPA hockey, and the rights of the NHL and the Players Association. And yeah, one of my funnest parts, I think, was when we talked about, we got them to, the fighting that was in it, because this is the one asterisk, and every story needs an asterisk. I've come to feel that every perfect game needs to have the asterisk, because it makes it more interesting. Kind of like when we did the Black Mesa doc, right? And Zen ended up being like this asterisk that was on the original game, right? Like I think it ends up being something you get to like really like I don't know, analyze and stuff. And NHL's big one, of course, is the fact that the fights were taken out in 94. As a result of kind of what you were talking about. But we got to talk to him about the fighting mode that was 100% finished and had like all this cool shit, like tugging the jerseys over their heads and everything. And I think they had goalie fights in it and everything.
So Mark talks about that a bit, and it's so fascinating because not only did they build out the whole fighting mode, but the fighting itself was so integrated into the gameplay loop that Mark he literally uses the word that it was traumatic when they ripped it out, because essentially, like, imagine an alternate version of NHL 94 where there are fights, and the fights can result in people getting injured and taken out of the game for long periods of time, if not the whole game. I mean, that becomes like a strategic consideration when you're talking about, like, you know, if Gretzky puts 3 goals on you in the first period, you're just like, all right, just beat the shit out of that guy and like get him out of the game.
And also it's tied into the which I didn't realize, the like audience loudness and the heat. They had a secret heat meter that was basically like, I thought the audio, because there's like a decibel meter in the menu, and I always thought that was just for color, like, oh yeah, I guess they're into it. But no, there's like a direct response between how hyped the audience is, like a home court advantage, basically, home ice advantage, and like how big the hitboxes were on like taking shots or getting decked. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, and the fights were obviously like tied into that too.
Yeah. So the Mark mentions the fights as sort of like the tension release valve for that build up. Like there would be this kind of crescendo where the crowd would be like going crazy, and then the home teams, not only their hitboxes are affected, but also their stats are slightly affected. And then a fight would kind of break out and be an opportunity to like break that momentum. So it was like such a core part of the loop that it's bizarre it didn't end. I mean, it's bizarre that such a crucial part of the game in the designers' minds was taken out, and it still ended up being such a good game. But yeah, the heat stuff. Mark mentions that he wished it was called adrenaline, which I think is cool, because it kind of communicates like what's going on. But yeah, so the hit detection circle or sphere that is detecting when a player grabs the puck, and like those things basically are attenuated by the heat meter, and so the distance that you can be from the puck and still grab it is increased, as well as like your shooting capacity and like speed and things like that. And yesterday in our meeting we were talking about like if that was applied to like fighting games or Souls games.
Yeah, or Souls
something.
games. Yeah. Like, who knows? Maybe it is. Like
So I've watched a bit of do you guys know Zuli the Witch? She does they do a YouTube channel where they like
Yes.
they like tear apart a bunch of the assets for Souls games and stuff.
I've come across them in the past. It's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah.
So I've seen enough of those to think that maybe this is not in Souls games, but it also could be something that doesn't come up when you import a bunch of like debug assets into the engine or whatever. But we were talking about yesterday, like it would be cool if in Bloodborne fashion, instead of having the incentive to be super aggressive, you're regenerating health like in Bloodborne, to do something where if you're like low health and you get super aggressive, then your weapon hitboxes get bigger or the enemy hitboxes get bigger and your player hitbox shrinks and stuff. So I mean, it's just like the things that Mark Lesser is talking about, and admittedly, he says like I was not a hockey fan. I didn't know anything about hockey. He says I had to ask like a bunch of embarrassing questions about like basic hockey stuff. But I feel like that outsider perspective was like it enabled him to view hockey in a way that is abstracted from the actual sport itself, which I think is like that is the most exciting thing about this doc to me, is that the way that Mark talks about hockey and his experience coming into it is he talks about things like rod hockey, which is kind of like the hockey equivalent of foosball.
Right.
And it was like this revelatory moment for me. He also worked on Mattel handhelds, like the old handheld, like analog, like kind of calculator looking games.
Right.
And it clicked in my head that like the history of sports video games is probably so much more influenced by like bubble hockey and football.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it never clicked for me until now.
I never either. After from that interview, I had the same thing. And then from what you were saying about how like Madden it's the same thing where you pick some plays, you snap, and then you pick who you're throwing it to, or you know what I mean? Like it's like it's because you could, and like some games have messed with the formula a bit, like in Madden and in some of the football games, you can be one player, which is like a whole other game, right? But largely, you're right. It's like when you go down to the Musée Mécanique and play some of those old like physical board games for those sports, and you're like, yeah, God, that is literally what, at least when these games were getting made, when the first like Atari sports games were getting made, that's what they were looking at.
Yeah, like I had this game as a kid that it must have been like a hand me down, because this thing was probably made in the 50s, but it was like a big football like gridiron made of steel or like aluminum or something, and it had these little magnetized players on it that you would put down, and the whole thing would vibrate when you turned it on and make this horrible noise.
Yeah, and they'd move.
Yeah,
I remember
exactly.
seeing this before. Yeah,
exactly. And like I never even really learned how to properly play with it, but just as a kid, it was so fascinating to just set up everyone on the thing and put the ball in one of their hands, and then just turn it on and kind of like watch them move around and stuff.
Right.
And there's a way in which it didn't click until editing this doc that sports games in a big way are kind of more of a like an ant farm, like a sports simulation / ant farm with like a foosball element to it than it is, like you said, like simulating being one of the players, which is more like it doesn't feel like playing football. It feels like this top-down omniscient management of a football team.
Like the game that is most like playing football is Rocket League, and that's not even a joke. Like it's literally the or soccer, the feeling when I've played football growing up in my life and kicking a football is that of Rocket League. It's hitting the ball in the right spot, trying to look at where you're hitting it, getting the right angle and spin on it. It's not doing like seeing where the winger is, or like having a high press. Like that's management. It's a totally different thing. It's funny, there's in Europe as well, with like speaking of soccer and football, European football, there's something called Subutio, which you wouldn't know over here, presumably. It's basically like tabletop football, and they have these like little football men, little soccer dudes sitting on top of like a half a sphere, so like they sort of wobble, you know what I mean? And you had 11 of them, and then you had a goalie who was on a stick, and it was turn-based, and you had a tiny little ball, and you'd flick the players, like flick them like that, and you'd try and get them to like hit the ball and pass to one of your players, but it was like kind of turn-based. And then the version that I used to play, because that was a little bit before my time, like maybe a decade before my time, but it was still around, was something called, God, I forget what it was called. I was about to say Actual Soccer, but that's actually a video game. It was called like, I forget what it was called, but it was basically Subutio, but magnets. So the players would sit on these little plinths, I'd call them probably, that had magnets, and the ball was magnetized, and you could because then you could dribble with it. You could flick the player, and they would like run with the ball, and they'd keep it in possession, unless the magnetization broke because you hit them too hard or something. And then you could press down on their heads, and it would close the magnet and just pop the ball. It would like force it out. Dude, it was so good. But it's just a different abstraction of the sports that we don't engage with. Sports games kind of are the way they are. So this was really fun. It's such a fun doc because it's not just a doc about an old sports game. It kind of like makes you realize it's like this central pillar from like the before sports games to the everything after. And it's like, this is why everything is the way it is now. Yeah. And not even just for hockey games. Like it is for hockey games, but also you can very easily project it onto Madden for sure, because it comes up a lot. But like other games, you can be like, oh yeah, that's why. And we talked to the new NHL dudes, like the NHL 24 guys, about like this problem where like now it's not the same. Now the expectations of fans are totally different, but they want to have this sense as people play the games in different ways, but it has to look, the fidelity needs to be there, like, and how important NHL 94 is, but also how much of a pain in the ass NHL 94 is, because it's like they perfected it 30 years ago and you're having to sort of like carry the torch 30 years later. That's cool.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. It also kind of like, I felt like very alienated as a kid because I didn't like sports. Like it was what everyone was into. So like I tried to just fake it until you make it, and I just tried to like baseball for like a decade. Like I found it pretty boring to be honest.
What about hockey? Because you grew up in Massachusetts.
I did. Actually it was fun editing this documentary because I heard a bunch of names of like Ray Bourque. Like I haven't thought about Ray Bourque since I was 7 years old. I actually, being a contrarian child who hated baseball, collected hockey cards. So yeah, I'll have to dig up my hockey. I'll send them to Mark Lesser.
Might be your retirement cards at this stage.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure they're worth all of $5. The other thing I want to mention is, did you guys ever play paper football in school as kids?
No, I've never even heard of that.
Frank, you know what that is?
Like on your desk where you fold a piece of paper and then like flick it. Yeah.
I was thinking.
Oh yeah.
You make like a pier or like a triangle of folded paper, and then the four downs are you're flicking it across a table, and you're trying to get it to hang over the edge of the table, not go over, and that's a touchdown. Or when you get close enough to the other side, you go for a field goal, and the other person has to go like this. And
you're kidding.
You try to kick it through with like you put the triangle upright and you flick it through as a field goal.
So you're trying to get it. So it's kind of like shuffleboard. You're trying to get it as far down as possible without falling off the edge.
Yeah, exactly.
I had 4 days. You had 4 days to do it. Or do you have to use all 4 downs, or can you just do it in the first?
You can do it in the first, but like flicking from one end. We would play this at like cafeteria tables in the lunchroom, so the tables are quite wide. And so like doing it in one is like you got to put a lot of zest on it. So it's
a high risk maneuver. You're going to overshoot. So
it's a Hail Mary.
So you're kind of getting the yardage, and then you're just trying to go.
Yeah, it's like golf, like you drive it and then you gotta like tap it in a little bit. But I had a flashback to playing that as a kid. I haven't thought about that in probably at least 20 years.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's weird. All these different abstractions of sports are so fascinating. As someone who like doesn't really care about sports but loves games, I feel like editing this documentary for me has like bridged a bunch of neurons in my brain between the like I don't give a shit about sports and I love games. Yeah, Frank's got a little paper football for the viewers. Let's give us a.
Oh, is that how you do the field goal? All right, here we go. There we go. Let's see if he does it. There's a lot of missed field goals this weekend.
Looked a little off. I'm think it's good.
I guess he had to hit the camera for it to look straight to us, which is a pretty small target.
It went right below.
All right, that counts. That's good. That's 3.
Good, yeah.
But anyway, it bridged a part of my brain where I was like, sports are just games, and I was like, I know that sounds so stupid to say out loud, but I was like, it's just like all these just different ways of like playing games and gamifying sports or something.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, speaking of that, like having never done sports, but in the Yakuza games, you can go to a batting cage. And that always seemed really fun in the Yakuza games. So it wasn't until like 2 months ago, some friends and I went to in SoCal in round 1, they have like, it's called Sportsha or whatever. Okay. But it's like you pay $20 and for like hours you can like do batting cages, like bowling, a bunch of different things. So cool. I did batting cages for the very first time. Nice. And it was just like Yakuza. It was awesome. So I did a batting cage, and it was like the most fun I had. It was so satisfying. So check out batting cages. I don't care. Yeah.
How were your hands afterwards? Were they like?
I felt like my muscles were sore, but it was awesome. Like I got like a little blister, but it was like I wanted to do it again.
Dude, batting cages are so much fun. Even as I said, I hated sports, but like all my friends were into it. But batting cages was like the thing we could all agree on because like. I don't know. It's just like it's a fun like hand-eye coordinate. I mean, that's what I'm saying is like it took me 32 years of life to realize that sports are just games and like in a meaningful way where I actually care or something. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Right.
Maybe that sounds like hard to explain, but
there was the batting cages you mentioned there. There was a video that Archipel did with somebody who was at a batting cage.
That sounds right. That sounds right.
Who was it? There was it was like Yu Suzuki no, it wasn't. Who was it? Miyazaki? I forget. It was some developer. It might have been some of the
Suda 51.
Was it Suda?
That sounds like it. Yeah.
Let's hit the batting cages with Suda 51. This is a
cool.
Destructoid. Yeah, it's an Archipel video.
Oh, that's dope. Yeah. Suda. We interviewed Suda back in July of 2020. Well, no, we put it up in July 2020. It was like March of 20. Wait, 2020? No, it was 2019. No, it was 2020. It was 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, Suda was doing it. That's cool. Yeah, looks like a good time. I like the abstractions of like, because you used to like games like table football. Like you always had to make different versions of sports because you didn't have enough people. Like I'm sure, especially with like gridiron football, you'd never have like a full offensive and defensive line to play that. In soccer, we used to do like you do in football, sometimes you do like last man back for goalie and stuff like that. Or if you only had like 5 people, you could do something called World Cup, which was you just play on one goal. It was like one person on goal and then generally in pairs. So if you had like 7 people, it'd be like 3 teams and then a goalie. And it was like knockout. Like you had to be the last person. You had to not be the last team standing. And then like if you started with 5 teams, so like 11 people on the field, 1 on goal and 10 players, then like the last person will be out. And then the next round it was down to 4 teams. Then the next person. Or we used to do like headers and volleys where you had to score with either your head or a volley. Like a volley is when the ball gets kicked to you and you kick it before it bounces. So you do like headers and volleys as well. Just like anything to, mix it up or make it work with fewer people. Or in your case, play at a cafeteria table.
Or play Mega Man. You guys ever play Mega Man Soccer?
No. I never played that.
Right?
Super Nintendo game. It's a soccer game with Mega Man characters, and they all have like special abilities where the ball turns into fire and ice and stuff. It's really good.
Legitimately, one of the best football games I've ever played is Mario Strikers Charged.
Oh yeah, that game is great.
The one on Wii is fantastic. And a lot of the Mario Strikers games are good. The GameCube one is good, but like the Mario Strikers Charge in particular, I think is absolutely fantastic. Like that game is such a blast.
I forgot about that game.
Yeah, man, good time. Sports games. Read all about them on Noclip. It took us 7 years to do one, but we're doing one of the best sports games ever made. So we're making up for lost time. Our documentary on NHL 94 will be coming out. Who knows? Maybe next month. We'll see. We're actually filming the stand-ups at an ice rink. We have booked out an ice rink in the local area for like an hour. It's a fairly large. You've never been to the.
No, I haven't been skating in probably 20 years.
You're probably still better than I'm going to be.
That's probably true.
I got to be holding on to one of those little fucking chairs.
Yeah, the ones they give the old people so they don't fall down and die.
Try not to fall over. I do have to source like a jersey or something for this, so I should probably get on that now because I think we're filming like is it next week?
It is.
I think it's next week, yeah. All right. Anyway, documentaries, they're coming out. That's all the games we've listed down here. We'll definitely have some Spoderman chat next week, among other things. Do we have any messages or emails or discords from the community?
Yeah, we had Brock Weinberger asked a question. Could Danny hang with Lies of P?
I haven't played any more of it, but only because I was away. Literally, the week after P-Gate, P-Gate makes it sound like I pissed somewhere.
It sounds like you peed, yeah.
I did a piss crime somewhere. We were away on a shoot. We've been away on a shoot for 2 of the past 3 weeks, and I mean the entire week. So I just was not around. So I'm dying to get back to Lies of P. But yeah, that's my update on Lies of P.
Yeah, they say the email was saying how like you said it was easy, but it does get way harder. So you'd like to hear what you think of it once it ramps up.
Oh, I've heard this from a few people. Yeah, that like it actually does get a bit gnarly. Sorry, did I just jump in and answer the question at the start of an email? Was there more sentences left? Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll just say the whole thing. Hey, I was curious to know if Danny ended up finishing Lies of P. I recall you said it was 20% easier than From Soft games, but it was in the first few hours and it ramps up a lot from there. P.S. Love the podcast. You guys bring a different vibe than most other gaming podcasts, and I appreciate how you bounce between new and old games. Brent Weinberger from Ontario.
Oh. Brock Weinberger.
Oh, God, Brock. Sorry.
No worries. Brock, like
Pokemon.
Yeah.
Pokemon.
My favorite Pokemon character. Sorry, Brock, you probably get that all the time, and then we've just done it again. Well, I've just done it. I tried to. Brock, there you go. Exactly. All of the Brocks. Great Brocks. There's great Brocks all around the place. From Ontario, beautiful Great White North. Yeah, so that's a good point. That makes me a little bit scared, but we'll see. I'm gonna keep going. It feels like a game that I know I'm going to complete sometime. You know, like when you play like it might not be I still haven't completed Elden Ring, but I know I'm going to complete unless I die. But like. I probably won't die. I'll probably live forever. I know I'm going to get around to it eventually. It's like it's not one that I've like bounced off and I won't come back to. Eliza P feels like one of those to me where I'm like, I really like this thing, but I'm going to take it at my own pace and I'll get around to it. Yeah.
Speaking of Elden Ring, this was not worth devoting an entire segment of the podcast to because we've already talked about Elden Ring for 400 hours on this podcast. But I played the seamless co-op mod with some people recently. It's really, really good. And we didn't experience bugs we played for over 5 hours and experienced like one bug that required resetting. It's very easy to set up. It's a fan-made mod. It will probably not get you VAC banned, hopefully. They said,
but if it does,
it's not my fault.
Yeah.
It said as long as you don't, it has a different save architecture, so as long as you don't modify the saves that it makes for the mod, it won't mess up. It's like not on their servers; it's totally separate. But it is in Elden Ring when you summon people for co-op, they can come in. It limits the area. It bounds where you can go with the co-op person, and then you can go fight a boss, and they disappear, and then you have to resummon them for the next area. But for seamless co-op, you just it creates new proprietary items, and the host you edit an INI file, so you all have the same password, and then the host uses an item, and then the other people up to like I think it was either 8 or 16. It was like an absurd number. Use another item and summon into your world, and then it's just literally co-op Elden Ring.
Wait, so were you saying that the the bubble thing? Sorry, I was half listening because I looked at something else for a second. The bubble thing is there an official?
That's in regular Elden Ring co-op. Like when you summon,
you're right.
When you summon like a phantom of a friend to help you with a boss.
Oh, you're right. It's like a phantom thing. Yeah.
I've never done it, but what I gather is that it bounds an area. There's like a fog wall that you can't go through or something like that.
Right.
Because it's like per area. But this is seamless co-op, so you can play the entire game co-op, one summon, never have to resummon, and it's just like
could they be like off in a different part of the map?
That's a really good question. So when you fast travel, it initiates like a vote for everyone to fast travel together. Presumably for performance reasons, because the game would be like it would be streaming like multiple giant dioramas of assets at the same time. So I don't know. I haven't stress tested it yet, but it's run really stable, and it does the same thing where it attenuates the stats, so like the bosses have more health to compensate for the fact that you have like 3 people or whatever.
Cool.
But it's really good.
And like, say you were playing a game and I went in, is it me going into your game, or is it like we both have our version? So if I like if you logged off, I can still play, or like I could still play with that character after you went away, or how does that kind of?
So it seems like it retains all progress. So when my co-conspirators went back to when I banished them back to their worlds, they where they were in physical space was where they were when I summoned them, but they had like those bosses were defeated. They still had the same items and level progression and stuff. So it seems,
but it's like in your game.
Yeah, it's in my game, but it's like it's writing all of the quest progression and item gets into their character.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really good. It's super easy to set up too. I'm always intimidated by modding games and stuff for some reason. Even though I've done it a billion times, I still feel like I'm like, oh, that sounds like a bunch of work. But you just download a file and dump it in your Elden Ring folder.
Hell yeah. What's it called again?
Elden Ring Seamless Co-op mod.
Seamless Co-op mod. Wow. That's a ballsy name for something too, because it really has to be seamless if you call it seamless
Yeah.
co-op.
It's seamless. It works really. The only bug is that when you're all riding Torrent, the horse, sometimes Torrent doesn't.
Wait, are you
appear.
all riding the same
No,
torrent?
that's what we were saying. Is that would have
Oh.
been so funny as if everyone was on the same horse. But no, it doesn't. It has all sorts of bugs that happen. My favorite of which is that Torrent doesn't load, and so your cohorts will be just like in the air doing like a horse motion.
Oh,
but
funny.
there's nothing under them, so it just looks like they're like hopping around like a madman.
They're just caught LARPing.
Yeah.
There's really good LARPing.
They're on the playground at school.
When cutscenes happen, is only one person, I'm guessing, all that sort of
It's
stuff?
one person in the cutscene, but everyone can see it together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but
wow.
it's really fun. Highly recommend. If you, I don't really like to replay games, but have wanted to replay Elden Ring in some capacity. And I feel like this is a good way to do it with like a fresh perspective.
Excellent. Sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Seamless co-op. I like it. Fair play to the developers of that. Fair play to all the mod developers out there doing the work. That's episode 147 of the Noclip podcast. Apologies again for being away last week. We won't be, I don't think, I think we're good until Christmas. We'll have all our Game of the Year stuff going on in December as well, so you can look forward to that. But there shouldn't be any more breaks in the schedule. Loads of stuff happened around these parts. We did that big Patreon survey, I think I mentioned a couple of weeks back. Some changes happened to the Patreon. The NHL 94 doc is getting worked on. The Return to Monkey Island documentary, which I think I've mentioned here. I forget if I have or not, but I've just done it now. We've been working on that for months now. That is almost done. Both of these documentaries are going to be like long, right? The Return to Monkey Island one's like 90 minutes at least. What's the NHL one looking like?
NHL is currently about an hour and 20 minutes. I think I could maybe trim it down a little bit more, but it's like, at some point, I just want to, I've been watching these like slow Ozu movies and just like basking in the atmosphere.
Right, yeah,
and it's prepared me to like, sometimes you just got to like let it play out and not try to like trim all the, you know what I mean? Sometimes when you trim the fat, you cut off some of the meat. You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point, yeah. Just chew the bone.
Yeah, just chew on that bone for a while, baby.
Yeah, there you go. Chew on the bone, folks. Enjoy it. To support this podcast, fund our documentaries, and give me speech lessons. Get access to all of our bonus episodes in the official Discord. You can do so over at patreon.com/Noclip. Very exciting times over here. We can't tell you about a lot of it, but you'll know about it soon enough. And excited to. Well, any of the stuff that we're working on, once it's out in public, we will tell you about it on the podcast. We'll tell you about it on Discord and the Patreon and all that sort of stuff. So don't worry about that. I should also mention, actually, I've probably never done this in the podcast because we're going to do a push for it at some stage. You can become a free patron of Noclip. Right now and probably forever. We have free membership turned on, so you can become a free member if you do that. Whenever we do like public free posts, the Patron show at the moment is one of those. If you want to watch me talk about what's coming up and show off early clips and things like that each month, then you get access to that as well. You don't have to put your credit card details in. You just have to have an account on Patreon. That's it. And then you can just sign up for free membership. So if you want to, go ahead and do that. We have, I think, something like 4,000 free members at the moment and about 4,000 paid members. So it's definitely worth doing. And obviously, yes, like full transparency, it is obviously some sort of ramp for us, hoping that eventually, maybe, perhaps, you'll become a patron. But also, it's a place where a lot of people who have been patrons in the past can then just drop back to there and be in contact with the work that we're doing and be part of the community and not have to, chip in a bunch of money every single week, which obviously we completely understand is something that we are very happy that anyone can do at all and we don't expect folks to do. So if you are interested at all, head over to patreon.com/Noclip and stick on your free membership. If you already have a Patreon account, there's literally no reason not to do it. And if you do not already have a Patreon account, it takes like 2 seconds to set up if you're interested at all. And that's it. Jeremy, what are you doing for the rest of the week?
Probably doing some more NHL 94 editing. Maybe capture a little of the original Madden, which I'm absurdly bad at. Work on my game, get outside a little bit, and hopefully play some video games.
It's still hot. It got hot again.
I know. It's almost November.
Happened.
Yeah, it's like summer's back.
Yeah. Did you get the alarm for the earthquake earlier?
No. Was there an earthquake?
Yeah, there was a 4.6 over near Sacramento. So.
Oh damn.
Not that big at all, but I got the burr, 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 national emergency fucking thing went crazy on me. And I was like, oh my God, it's either an earthquake or a child has been abducted and they're car is being driven. Here it is. Yeah, look at this. I got it here. I'll put it up on the camera so people can see it.
Oh wow.
Drop cover, hold on.
Yeah, that's what it fucking said. It was like, burp, 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 earthquake detected. And sure enough, the minute it came, I looked down, saw which one it was, ran to a door frame, didn't feel it. So
I've only ever had one where the actual usually the alarm scares the shit out of me and then nothing happens. So right. I feel like it's more of like a deleterious impact to make me aware of the earthquake. I've only ever had one where then the earthquake that happened was scary. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Was that in California?
Yeah. It was up here. I had never experienced an earthquake till I moved to
you had that
California.
bad one?
Yeah, we had a really bad one, and it was like I went and stood in the doorframe, and there's this weird feeling that I had never gotten before that I imagine people who have been through really bad natural disasters get, where like I was like, oh, there's nowhere to hide. Like I'm like in the door and everything is shaking, and like it wasn't letting. Usually, an earthquake is like a quick second, the windows rattle, and then it's over. This was like persisting for the longest 8 seconds of my life or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, there's nowhere to go. Like the earth could just open up and swallow me right now.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
I was the only one I've ever felt. There was a big enough one when I was in SF. Maybe 9 years when I first moved here, so almost a decade ago. But I had been out the night before, so I was just like twisted, drunk in bed, and didn't feel it at all. But there was one about a year later. It was only a 4.2, so it was a baby. But the epicenter was like a half mile, quarter mile from our house, and it was in Piedmont. The apartment we're renting was off Lakeshore in Oakland, and the cats went fucking bananas. That's what happened. It was like 5 a.m. or something. The cats started running around the room, and I woke up and I was like, what the fuck is that? And then it happened like almost immediately. It was like, because there's like different waves that happen. And the thing that freaked me out the most was that we were sleeping with the window open. It was one of these apartments. It was always the wrong temperature. So we'd sleep with the window open at nighttime so it would cool off. And I could hear the earthquake. I was like, it's just, and that sound is just concrete moving. Yeah. And it's just like, oh man. Suddenly you feel like everything you just have this sense of the earth being just like static, and then you have this sense of no, it's not.
Dude, that's what I'm talking about. Is like you take for granted the like it's like if you it's like how like solid objects are made up of big clouds of atoms that are just so like
it's all air.
Tight
mostly
together
air.
That you could like you're like, oh, I could just pass my hand through it, but you can't. It's like putting your hand through a table and you're like, oh no, like nothing I believe in is solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a physics mind fuck or something. Yeah, not a fan. Frank, what are you doing for this week, except for having nightmares about earthquakes now that we've been talking about that?
No, a lot of work. There's the new Scorsese movie coming out in IMAX on Thursday.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. But the number one thing I've been
so you can
looking
really
for,
experience that American guilt in IMAX.
The number one thing I'm looking forward to, I've been looking forward to this for months, is on Sunday in LA, there's a new wrestling promotion called Kitsune. They're hosting a Japanese women's wrestling event. They're flying in a ton of wrestlers from across the world. There's so many wrestlers I've never seen before that I have like a big group of friends. I guarantee we're gonna be the loudest people in the building. I can't wait. By the time it's Friday, if you're in SoCal, Kitsune Wrestling, it's gonna be in Koreatown in LA. Billy Starks, Unagi Sayaka, Risa Sera, Tara Zepp, Sandra Moon, Konami, who's from Stardom. There's a wrestler named Konami, not the actual video game organization. I can't wait. It's gonna be awesome. Rachel Armstrong's a new wrestler who's very good. So this is like I'm so Dark Sheik. So many good wrestlers.
Is
I can't
Maki
wait.
Ito in that?
No, she's not. She's actually being in Oakland this weekend.
Yes,
I think.
so that's literally why I'm bringing this up. Is Hood Slam Red is on this weekend?
It's good.
And she's
it's a good
at
card.
that, and I was because there's an amazing poster of her
with the roses,
with all the roses. Yeah. Hood Slam. If you live in the East Bay, if you live in the Bay Area, and you've never been to Hood Slam, it is such a good night out. It is a very local wrestling federation. It's been around for at least a decade. It's been around since I moved over here. And they do. I still think they operate out of just outside of what's the name of that fucking area, Jeremy, down there where the port comes in. That
Coliseum
no,
I'm not
where
sure
they were
where
going to build a new where the ferry goes from near Emeryville. What's the name of that plaza? It's named after a guy. Why am I forgetting?
Oh,
this?
Jack London.
Jack London Square. They're just around the corner from Jack London Square is where they used to be in that old area where all the Chinese restaurants have all their like food area at the back. A couple of great dive bars around there. But yeah, it's a good time. Super cheap tickets is from what I remember, or at least definitely worth the price. Good time.
I looked it up. It's November 18th is that Hood Slam event. Hood Slam Red with Maki Ito. But yeah, there's so much good wrestling. I love it.
Yeah, I might head to that even. I might
should
get
check
me
it
back
out.
into Hood Slam. I don't live in Oakland anymore. I'll have to like stay at my in-laws' house or something.
It's worth it. I was just at this last week was the GCW, my favorite one up in LA, and it was like the best night. There's a wrestler named Santana Jackson who is a professional Michael Jackson impersonator,
and Carlos Santana.
Santana Jackson, and he wrestles and like he does like the Thriller, like he'll do a transformation where he turns into a werewolf. He does a moonwalk DDT. It is like the most entertaining thing in the world. So it's GCW Santana Jackson. It's so good.
I just saw another wrestler on Hood Slam here. We got the Stoner brothers. Rick Scott Stoner and Scott Rick Stoner. Their names are inverse of each other. And it says
I've seen them before,
they would dominate competition before reunited with their old head coach from Smokelahoma, Coach Joey Nuggs. I really love this. Is a good shtick. I love that.
Wow, we're all very aware of the smoke scene in Oakland. It goes deep, long before legalization. So no surprise there. Hood Slams are great. That's the only one of those like small town wrestling things I've ever been to, except for in Ireland. I went to Irish Whip Wrestling, which was a promotion. There's been a couple of these amateur promotions in Ireland. I went to one when I was like 14 or 15 in my hometown, and I saw a wrestler who at the time was known as Seamus O'Shaughnessy. These days he's just known as Sheamus, the WWE superstar, but back then he was just this like similarly pasty Irish guy in his early 20s. He was in a tag team match with Raven, which the old WWF guy, who seemed to be not in great shape, or at least suffering a lifetime of working in the business, I think is probably how I put it.
I've seen Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler, so I feel like I have a good sense of how destroyed your body can get.
Very close. Even how the face, I would even say, is very particular to Raven. So got some great photographs of us hanging out with Raven and not taking photographs with Sheamus. Really just not knowing who the most famous person in that situation was gonna be. But there you go. Thank you all for listening to the podcast, episode 147. We'll see you next week. Enjoy some video games, and we'll see you on the other side. Bye.